Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point in everyone's journey when heaven stops speaking and it becomes your time to act. You have prayed, you have stumbled, you have waited for signs after signs, but now the silence of heaven is not a form of rejection, it is a sign of graduation. You are no longer waiting for God to move, now God is waiting for you. You are the chosen one, not because of anything extraordinary about your birth or because you were born into the perfect family. You are chosen because, before the world was created, the King inscribed your name into the scroll of destiny. And now, he says, see it for yourself. Walk it out. Take that final step. In every calling, there is a divine turning point. The promises you once heard in private must now become your reality in the public. God never designed you to simply be a professional wait-and-see person. He created you to be a finisher. The difference between a dreamer and a conqueror lies not in what they hear, but in what they decide. Vision without movement is nothing but a fantasy. Some of you have been stuck in the almost stage, almost starting that business, almost writing that book, almost stepping out in faith, almost embracing the new chapter. But the final step is where many give up. It's where trust is put to the test. It's no longer about what you see with your eyes, but what you see with your spirit. Chosen one, hear me today. Every person's journey has a moment where the waiting must end, not because the promise has already been fulfilled, but because the responsibility has shifted. So many live in a cycle of waiting, waiting for more signs, waiting for more confirmations, waiting for another prophetic word, another open door, another sign from heaven saying, go now. But the maturity of the chosen one is when you realize you are no longer waiting for God to move. He has already spoken, already anointed, already prepared, and has already placed everything you need within you for what is ahead. The silence you now feel is not abandonment, it is an announcement. Heaven's quietness is confirmation that the baton has been passed to you. It's now your turn to act. The kingdom of God works on trust and responsibility. God is not in the business of raising spoiled, dependent children who need constant reassurance. He's building kings and queens, ambassadors of his kingdom, people who can recognize and move with the seasons without needing constant reminders. The waiting period was never meant to be permanent. It was a classroom, a season of preparation. But there is a graduation day in the spirit, and many fail to recognize it because they expect it to be accompanied by dramatic displays and signs. In truth, most times graduation feels like silence. It's like being pushed onto the stage with trembling hands, realizing that you know more than you thought and are more prepared than you feel. God trusts the preparation he placed in you more than you trust yourself. The chosen one is not always the most gifted, the most obvious, or the most celebrated. The chosen one is the one who hears the silence and knows it's time to take action. You are no longer being spoon-fed, you are no longer being handheld. You are being called to rise, to rule, to take ownership of what you've been given, even when you can't see the whole picture. Every hero in Scripture faced this moment. Abraham left his country without a map. Moses raised his rod before the waters parted. David walked into a battlefield with nothing but 5 stones and the memory of a God who had delivered him from lions and bears. They moved not because everything was clear, but because obedience was their native language. They had learned that movement attracts miracles, that stepping out makes space for the supernatural to enter, that heaven only supports what earth dares to start in faith. The longer you wait for the perfect conditions, the longer you will delay your destiny. Perfection was never promised. Certainty was never guaranteed. What was promised was his presence. I will be with you. That is the only promise you need. But many are stuck, paralyzed by hesitation, thinking that waiting is wisdom. There is a difference between waiting for divine timing and hiding behind spiritual excuses. Some prayers, after a certain point, stop being prayers of faith and become prayers of fear, disguised in spiritual language. When God says move, your prayers must transform into steps. When He says go, your meditations must become motion. There is danger in overstaying the season of waiting. What was once preparation can easily turn into procrastination. What was once faith can become fear. The longer you delay, the harder it is to obey. The voice of God is clearest at the moment of command, but grows faint amidst the noise of overthinking. If you are truly the chosen one, you must learn to recognize when the season has shifted. There is a sound in the spirit when the season changes. It's not always loud, not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a knowing deep inside that says, "This is the moment. If I don't move now, I'll miss what God has prepared for me." Destiny is like a flowing river. You can't catch it standing on the shore. You must leap into it, even if the current seems wild, trusting that the same God who called you will also carry you. When you realize that God is waiting on you, everything changes. You stop begging for permission and start walking in authority. You stop asking, "Is it really me?" and start declaring, "If not me, then who?" You understand that the mantle has already fallen on your shoulders. It is your responsibility to pick it up and move. Destiny is not passive, it's active. It responds to courage, bows to obedience, and unlocks for those who are willing to move beyond their fears into the unknown. You are the solution to a problem on earth. You are the answer heaven has sent. But solutions don't work sitting on a shelf. They need to be applied, activated, and released. Every day you hesitate, someone else's breakthrough is delayed. Every day you hold back in fear, someone else continues to suffer without the gift you were meant to deliver. Your calling is not just for you, it's for the lives that are connected to your obedience. When heaven falls silent, it's not because heaven is absent, it's because heaven has spoken enough. The last instruction still stands. The last word is still valid. God hasn't changed His mind. He is waiting to see if you will trust Him enough to move without needing another sign. The chosen one moves when others wait. The chosen one acts when others analyze. The chosen one knows that faith is the bridge between hearing and having. Faith isn't just believing God can do it, it's acting as if He already has. Faith is movement, risk, stepping out without a backup plan because you know God's plan A is the only plan that matters. You were born for this moment. You are equipped for this battle. You are anointed for this assignment. Stop waiting for another confirmation. Stop waiting for the fear to disappear. Fear doesn't vanish before you take action. It flees once you begin moving. Boldness is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. The chosen one rises when others retreat. The chosen one advances when others analyze. The chosen one trusts the voice of the King, even when the world around them offers 1,000 reasons to stay still. Today you stand at the edge of everything you've prayed for, cried for, fasted for. But the final step is yours. God has delivered the promise to the door of your faith. Now you must open it with your obedience. The heavens are waiting, the earth is groaning, and the clock of destiny is ticking. Your moment is here. It's not enough to see the promise in your mind if you're not willing to pursue it with your life. Many people are great at dreaming, but poor at doing. They see visions of greatness, flashes of purpose, glimpses of the future that excite them, but when it's time to act, they freeze. They are paralyzed by fear, intimidated by the gap between where they are and where they know they can be. But vision that stays locked inside you is a prisoner. Vision is not given to you to admire, but to manifest. Until you move, your vision will remain a fantasy, a beautiful picture in your heart that will never become a reality on earth. True vision requires motion. Dreams without action are nothing more than illusions. The power of vision lies not in how clearly you see it in your imagination, but in how boldly you pursue it when the conditions are unclear. Many are waiting for everything to line up perfectly before they take a step. They wait for perfect clarity, perfect timing, perfect support, and perfect resources. But the truth is, perfect conditions never come. If you wait for everything to align, you'll wait forever. Vision is often clearest in your spirit, but foggiest in your circumstances. God shows you the end from the beginning, but doesn't always reveal every step in between, because faith must have room to grow. Vision gives you a glimpse of the destination, but motion is what sets the journey in motion. Every major figure in history who achieved something significant moved before they had all the answers. Noah built the ark before there was even a cloud in the sky. Abraham left his homeland not knowing where he was going. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho before they even cracked. They all had a vision, but what set them apart was their willingness to move toward it. They didn't just dream, they lived out their vision. They didn't wait for perfect conditions, they acted despite the uncertainty. Vision must drive you to act, even when others don't see what you see. It must make you build when others laugh. Vision must make you move when fear tells you to stay still. Many have carried powerful visions to their graves, never bringing them to life because they mistook seeing for seizing. They thought that because God showed it to them, it would just happen. But vision doesn't work like that. It requires effort, action, and a price to manifest. Seeing is only the invitation. Moving is the acceptance. Until you act on what you've seen, it remains potential, not reality. People admire their dreams like they admire a beautiful painting in a gallery. They look at it, imagine themselves in it, talk about how wonderful it would be to live it. But they never step inside it because they refuse to leave the comfort of their current reality. Vision will cost you comfort. It will cost you predictability and the safety of the familiar. But until you're willing to pay that price, you'll be stuck between what you see and what you actually experience. Vision demands courage, the courage to look foolish, to fail publicly, to be misunderstood, to work when no one is applauding. It requires discipline to stay focused, to rise early and stay late, to invest in your growth, even when you'd rather spend on pleasure. Without courage and discipline, vision shrivels into regret. Many mistake inspiration for transformation. They feel moved emotionally by a powerful vision, but never take action toward it. They talk about it, dream about it, but they never do it. Wishing is not working, hoping is not hustling, and excitement is not execution. If you want to see your vision come to life, you must convert inspiration into action immediately. Every day you delay, your motivation decays. Every day you wait, your energy fades. Motion fuels momentum. The quicker you act after receiving vision, the more likely you are to continue when the excitement wears off. Vision without motion is a betrayal of the gift God has entrusted to you. It's like being handed a seed, but refusing to plant it. God has given you seeds of destiny, but seeds only grow when they're planted, watered, and exposed to the elements. Vision must be planted in the soil of effort, watered with perseverance, and exposed to the storms of testing if it is ever to bear fruit. When you move, even if it's a small step, you signal to heaven that you believe. Faith without works is dead, because it's not really faith at all. It's just wishful thinking dressed up in religious language. God doesn't respond to needs, He responds to faith. Faith moves first. Faith works while waiting. Faith builds while believing. Faith acts before answers are clear. The chosen ones aren't just dreamers, they're doers. They move even when trembling, even with uncertainty. There is no such thing as a passive promise. Every promise requires action. Every vision requires a willing vessel. God partners with movers, not sitters. Every vision requires a willing vessel. God partners with movers, not sitters. If you're standing still, you disqualify yourself from what He is ready to release. Your future is on the other side of your next step, not your next excuse. You may never feel completely ready, but that doesn't matter. You won't have all the answers. You won't have full support from everyone, but you must move anyway. Move even if you have to start small. Move even if you have to move alone. Move even if you're afraid. Fear is not the enemy of vision. Inaction is. Your movement activates divine assistance. When God sees you move, He sends provision, favor, strategy, connections, and wisdom. All these things can only be accessed while in motion. The anointing flows best on moving vessels. Oil doesn't stay in stagnant places. It flows on paths that are active. If you want to see the supernatural in your life, start moving naturally toward what you've seen spiritually. Heaven's resources chase those already in motion. Provision is waiting at the place of obedience, not at the place of planning. You're delaying your impact on the lives you were meant to reach. You weren't chosen just to admire the dream. You were chosen to live it, to walk it out, and to bring it from the unseen into reality. Your steps must align with your faith. Your actions should reflect your vision, and your feet must match your beliefs. Vision requires action, and action requires urgency. The final step is what separates those who almost made it from those who actually do. It is the point where dreams either die or destinies are born. Many turn back at this moment, not because they lack vision or desire, but because the pressure of that final step feels too overwhelming to endure. It's crucial to understand that the closer you get to fulfilling your purpose, the greater the resistance you will face. The pressure you feel at this point isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're breaking through. It's like the labor pains before giving birth, the final push before the prize is placed in your hands. But this last step requires everything from you. It demands your courage, your endurance, and your full trust in the one who called you. Many are misled into thinking that the hardest part is the beginning. Starting is hard. It requires overcoming inertia and stepping into the unknown. But if you think the starting line was difficult, wait until you reach the final stretch. It's one thing to begin with passion when excitement and hope fill the air. It's another thing entirely to finish when you're exhausted, when the novelty has worn off, when applause fades, and when doubt echoes louder than your faith. The final step can feel incredibly lonely, heavy, and like you have nothing left to give. But it is precisely at that moment when you need to push forward with everything in you, because the enemy knows that if he can't stop you at the start, he must try to stop you just before your breakthrough. This final step is where your preparation meets its test. All the lessons learned in the wilderness, all the faith you built in silence, all the resilience forged in waiting. Now, it must come together. The final battle is always the hardest, because the reward is the greatest. There are territories you are destined to possess that won't yield without a fight. There are doors that won't open without a final push. There are promises that won't manifest without an act of obedience that feels like it will cost you everything. But that's because valuable things are never given freely. Crowns aren't thrown at those who wander aimlessly. They are awarded to those who endure until the end. There's something uniquely terrifying about the final step. It requires total trust in God, and you can't see everything. You don't know the outcomes. You're past the point where your own strength or wisdom can help you. You're standing on the edge where only faith can sustain you. That final step feels like stepping off a cliff, trusting that God will catch you or teach you how to fly. But He always does. However, you will never experience that supernatural support unless you take the first step. The greatest temptation at the final step is not outright rebellion, but quiet resignation. It's that subtle voice saying, maybe this is enough. It's the whisper suggesting that you settle for less than what God promised. The temptation to slow down, ease up, and lower your expectations just enough to return to comfort. But comfort is the enemy of achievement. You weren't called to live a comfortable life. You were called to a life of significance. And significance demands sacrifice, especially at the final moments. At the final step, your vision will be tested by delay. You may feel like you've done everything right, yet the results don't match your efforts. You'll pray, fast, believe, work hard, and still see little to no movement. This is the testing of your perseverance, the proving ground for champions. It's easy to have faith for a day. It's another thing entirely to have faith for a decade. It's simple to trust when the sun is shining, but it's a different kind of trust when all you see are clouds and storms. Those who pass the final test, who refuse to quit when it's easier to walk away, are the ones who step into the realm of blessings and influence that most only dream about. At the final step, you'll often find yourself standing alone. Those who cheered you on in the beginning may have fallen away, and those who promised to stand with you may have disappeared. You'll realize that, at this critical moment, it's not about the crowd, it's about the covenant. It's not about who sees you, it's about the God who called you. You must be willing to complete your assignment even if no one is clapping, watching, or understanding. True greatness isn't determined by how you start, but by how you finish, especially when finishing costs you everything. Fear will scream the loudest at the final step. Doubt will gather its forces. Every insecurity you thought you had conquered will rise again. But you must recognize that fear's intensity is proof of how close you are to your breakthrough. The enemy doesn't waste his strongest weapons on those who pose no threat. If the warfare around you intensifies, it's because the treasure within you is about to be revealed. If the pressure feels unbearable, it's because the promise is unbreakable. Don't confuse exhaustion with a signal to quit. The final step will require you to tap into hidden strength you didn't even know you had. Your weariness isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of faithfulness, and heaven is waiting to crown your obedience with manifestation. The final step is often where the biggest miracles happen. The walls of Jericho didn't fall after just one day of marching. It was on the seventh day, after circling the city 7 times, that the walls collapsed. Naaman wasn't healed after dipping once, twice, or 3 times in the Jordan, but after the 7th time. The breakthrough comes with the extra push. The victory comes with the final act of obedience. It's in that moment when everything in you wants to stop, but you push forward one more time, that your destiny unfolds. See the final step not as a burden, but as a privilege. Not everyone is entrusted with the weight of that last step. Many are called, but few are chosen, because few are willing to pay the full price. But if you press forward, if you refuse to be moved by feelings, if you walk by faith and not by sight, you will find yourself standing in the reality of what you once only dreamed about. The final step is the step into fulfillment. It's the step that brings you into tangible evidence of God's faithfulness. It's the step that moves the chosen one from preparation to possession. At the final step, when everything feels stretched to the breaking point and the resistance seems overwhelming, there's one force that will carry you through: identity. It's knowing who you are at the deepest level, beyond circumstances, beyond feelings, beyond external validation. Identity is the secret weapon that enables you to finish what you started. It's the anchor that keeps you steady when doubt and fear try to push you off course. Without a firm grasp on your identity, the final step will feel impossible. You'll interpret the struggle as a reflection of your worth. But when you know who you are, you realize your worth was settled before the battle even began. Identity is not something you earn through achievements, it's something you receive through revelation. You don't become chosen because you succeed. You are chosen before you even take the first step. It's an internal knowing, rooted in the voice of God, that you are called, equipped, and appointed for a purpose greater than yourself. This identity must be louder in your soul than the noise of the world around you. If you see yourself based on your circumstances, you'll quit when those circumstances become unfavorable. But if you see yourself through the lens of divine identity, you'll push through, because you understand that circumstances are temporary, but your calling is eternal. At the final step, the enemy won't primarily attack your dream, he will attack your identity. He will whisper that you are a failure, a fraud, forgotten, or foolish for believing. He will replay every past mistake, magnify every current weakness, and prophesy every future defeat. If you don't know who you are, you'll believe the lies. You'll forfeit your inheritance because you'll assume you're unworthy to claim it. The real battle is always over your identity, because identity drives destiny. If the enemy can make you doubt who you are, he can disqualify you without ever touching your circumstances. You'll disqualify yourself by quitting prematurely. Identity is what empowers perseverance. When you know you are chosen, you endure differently. You fight differently. You wait differently. You don't interpret delays as denials or hardships as rejections. You understand that the weight you carry confirms the calling you bear. You're not surprised by resistance. You expect it. You're not discouraged by opposition. You're strengthened by it. You're not overwhelmed by the burden. You're honored to carry it, because you know that chosen vessels are trusted with greater battles and blessings. When you know who you are, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop entertaining doubt. You stop seeking permission from those who aren't assigned to understand your journey. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces God has called you to transform. Identity gives you the courage to walk alone if necessary, to build when others tear down, to wait when others rush ahead. It fortifies you against the storms of public opinion and internal insecurity. You cannot afford to reach the final step and still question your worth. The final step demands full confidence in your God-given identity, not arrogance or pride, but a humble, fierce certainty that you are who He says you are, confidence that you are anointed for this moment, equipped for this battle, and destined for this victory. Every promise you pursue requires internal fortitude rooted in identity. Without it, you will self-sabotage when pressure peaks. The revelation of identity is a survival weapon. When David faced Goliath, it wasn't his slingshot that gave him the advantage, it was his identity. He knew he was a covenant son of Israel, and Goliath was an uncircumcised Philistine. David's confidence came from understanding who he was in covenant with God. At the final step, you must have the same internal posture. Your confidence must be anchored in who you are, not what you feel. Feelings are fickle, but identity is eternal. At the final step, when nothing externally validates your progress, your identity will remind you that winning was determined the moment you said yes to the call. You're not fighting for victory, you're fighting from victory. Your identity guarantees the outcome, even if the process feels uncertain. This knowing transforms how you endure. You stop interpreting silence as abandonment and slow progress as failure. You see everything through the lens of a conqueror who has already been crowned in heaven, even if the crown has yet to touch your head on earth. Identity also governs how you recover. Even if you stumble at the final step, even if you temporarily lose your grip, knowing who you are allows you to rise again. A righteous person may fall 7 times, but they rise again, because their identity is tied to their calling, not their failures. Identity allows you to see setbacks as setups, not sentences. It gives you resilience that can't be manufactured by willpower alone. Identity protects your focus, ensuring you don't waste energy fighting battles that aren't yours. It sharpens your yes and strengthens your no, keeping you focused on the finish line. Your greatest warfare won't be physical. It will be psychological and spiritual. It will be about whether you truly believe you are the chosen one. The chosen one isn't perfect. They're chosen because they believe in the one who chose them. They stand not on their own merit, but on divine election. They move forward not because everything is easy, but because they refuse to betray the truth of their identity by quitting. Identity births gratitude. When you know you are chosen, you carry your calling with honor, not entitlement. You recognize that this journey is a privilege, not a punishment. This gratitude fuels your endurance, because you understand that every battle, every tear, every lonely night is producing a weight of glory beyond anything you can see right now. The final step will expose what you truly believe about yourself. It will strip away surface layers and reveal your core. If your identity is built on accomplishments, applause, or approval, the final pressure will crush you. But if your identity is rooted in the unshakable Word of God, you will withstand the pressure and step into everything you are called to possess. Before you can ever walk into what you are destined for, you must first see it within yourself. Victory is not first won on the battlefield, it's first won in the mind, the heart, and the spirit. The future you're meant to live must become more real to you on the inside than the circumstances you face right now. Every champion, every trailblazer, And every individual chosen for greatness who achieved their purpose had to master the ability to see with the eyes of faith, long before they could physically hold anything in their hands. This internal vision isn't just a daydream. It's a divine preview that fuels perseverance and unlocks the courage to act when everything around you suggests that it's impossible. To see it internally is all about coming into alignment with what God has already spoken over you. The promises you receive aren't created when you first see them with your natural eyes. They were established long before, in heaven. What you are doing when you begin to see them internally is agreeing with what already exists in the unseen realm. That agreement ignites faith, and faith becomes the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without this internal vision, there will be no substance for you to stand on when the storms hit. Without the internal evidence, you will have nothing to counter the external opposition. There will be times when everything you see around you seems to contradict what you have seen within. In fact, your external surroundings might directly oppose the internal vision that you hold. This is where many people give up, because they trust what they see with their natural eyes more than the vision that they have in their spirit. They interpret setbacks, delays, and detours as signs that they misunderstood the calling, or that their dreams are too large. But those who reach their destiny understand that the visible world is always slower than the vision they carry internally. The manifestation of what you see is the slowest part of the process. The internal vision operates at the speed of faith, while the external reality moves at the pace of process. You must hold tightly to the faster internal vision, even while waiting patiently for the slower external manifestation. Seeing it internally also serves as a shield against discouragement. It becomes your anchor when emotions fluctuate and your fortress when you face criticism. When you have a clear internal picture of your destination, you're less vulnerable to the temporary struggles along the way. You won't be thrown off course by every bad day, every delay, or every rejection. Instead, you measure progress by your faithfulness to the internal vision, not by what's happening externally. That inner clarity provides consistency. It gives you a reason to keep going, even when it feels like you are walking in circles. Internal vision requires imagination that has been surrendered to the Spirit of God. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about Spirit-led seeing. It's about allowing God to paint on the canvas of your heart the picture of what He has called you to create, to give birth to, or to become. That vision must become so detailed, so vibrant, so real inside of you that you can describe it clearly, even when no external evidence exists. Abraham had to see himself as the father of many nations long before he had even one son. Joseph had to see himself as a ruler long before he was ever brought out of the pit or the prison. David had to see himself as a king long before the crown ever touched his head. They acted differently, spoke differently, and endured differently because they carried the outcome within them. The danger is that many people want to experience externally what they have not yet seen internally. They want success, influence, impact, and fulfillment, but they haven't incubated the vision in their spirit. They haven't nurtured the image of the promised future until it becomes bigger than their fear of failure. They haven't let it become deeply rooted enough to endure the droughts, deserts, and disappointments. You can't hold in your hands what you haven't first cradled in your heart. Your external world will eventually align with your internal reality, but the internal must come first. There will be times when the only evidence you have that you are on the right path is the internal vision. No one else may see it. No one else may understand it. People may mock you, question you, or even abandon you. But when you have truly seen it internally, their unbelief won't shake you. You aren't building according to their blueprint. You are building according to the vision given to you by the Creator Himself. You carry that vision like a seed, nurturing it with faith, action, and obedience. Just as a seed germinates underground, hidden from sight, your vision grows in secret before it breaks through into visibility. Internal seeing also changes how you speak. You begin to declare what you have seen, Even if it sounds unbelievable to others, you speak life into the vision, affirming the unseen as if it's already real. The power of life and death lies in the tongue, and those who cultivate vision internally know that their words must align with what they've seen in the spirit. You can't speak defeat and expect to see victory. You can't speak fear and expect to walk in faith. Your language must match your vision. Seeing it internally changes your posture. It changes how you prepare. You don't prepare based on what you have right now. You prepare based on where you know you're headed. You begin to act like the person you saw in the vision, even before you fully embody that person in the physical world. You steward your time, your relationships, and your resources based on the future you've seen. Preparation becomes an act of faith. You dress for the destination, not for your current situation. This process of internal seeing also purifies your motives. As the vision matures inside of you, God refines it. He burns away selfish ambition, pride, and insecurity. He shapes the vision until it mirrors His heart, not just your desires. This purification ensures that when the external manifestation comes, you will carry it with humility and responsibility, not arrogance or recklessness. The internal preparation is just as crucial as the external possession. You must be relentless in protecting your internal vision. Doubt, fear, bitterness, and impatience are all enemies that try to cloud your sight. If the enemy can blur your vision, he can delay or derail your destiny. Therefore, you must guard your heart vigilantly. You must fill your spirit with the promises of God. Surround yourself with voices that speak faith, not fear. Silence the noise that tries to drown out the whisper of destiny inside of you. What you see internally becomes the seed that will eventually bear fruit externally. No harvest appears without first planting a seed. No building rises without first being envisioned. No destiny is fulfilled without first being seen. When you see it internally, when you believe it, nurture it, and prepare for it, you're already halfway to walking in it. The distance between you and your destiny isn't measured in miles, it's measured in clarity, faith, and perseverance. See it, hold on to it, walk toward it, and in time the world will see it too. When you stand at the edge of your destiny, when the finish line is within sight but not yet underfoot, when all your preparation has led you to the threshold but not yet into the promise, there's one thing that will carry you across: faith. Faith is the bridge at the final moment. It's not strength, it's not intellect, it's not even past experience that seals the journey. It's pure, raw, unfiltered faith. Faith that God is who He says He is. Faith that you are who He says you are. Faith that what has been promised will come to pass, even when every natural sign points to the opposite. Logic fails. Reason can no longer sustain you. The facts in front of you may contradict the future you've worked so hard for. It's in this moment that faith stands as the bridge, connecting where you've been to where you're going. Without faith, you will see the gap and retreat. You will see the impossibility and let fear send you back. But with faith, you'll step out, even when there seems to be no visible path. Faith doesn't require sight, it produces sight. The final moment demands the purest form of trust. You're required to step without full clarity, to obey without full understanding, to move without a guarantee of immediate success. At this point, many falter, because they expect certainty where God calls for trust. Faith is the willingness to walk into the unknown, based solely on the character of the one who called you. Faith is the decision to believe that if God has brought you this far, He will not abandon you now. Faith remembers the miracles of the past and leans into the promises of the future. At the final step, faith is not a casual belief, it's a consuming conviction, a full persuasion that what you've seen internally will manifest externally. Even if it takes longer, even if it looks different, and even if the cost is higher than you expected. Faith is stubborn when circumstances suggest surrender. Faith is resilient when timelines change and doors seem to close. Faith refuses to be offended by divine delay. It holds the tension between expectation and patience without becoming bitter or disillusioned. This kind of faith cannot be borrowed or inherited. It must be cultivated in the quiet moments when no one else is watching. It's built on a history of encounters with God's faithfulness, on a lifestyle of surrender, on daily decisions to trust when trusting is the hardest thing to do. It is forged in the fires of trials and refined in the deserts of waiting. By the time you reach the final step, your faith must be fully developed, fully rooted, fully alive. The final step requires everything you've been building. Faith at that moment demands the relinquishing of control. You have to release your grip on how you thought things would happen and embrace how God has planned them to unfold. Faith understands that obedience is your responsibility, but outcomes are God's responsibility. You're not called to manipulate the results. You're called to move when He says move. Sometimes stepping out in faith will make you look foolish. People won't understand why you keep believing, why you keep moving, or why you keep building when nothing seems to be happening. But faith doesn't care about how things look. It's grounded in obedience. Noah looked foolish building an ark when there was no rain. Abraham looked foolish, leaving everything familiar for an unknown land. Moses looked foolish, standing before Pharaoh with nothing but a staff. Jesus looked foolish carrying the cross before his resurrection. At the final step, you must be willing to look foolish in the eyes of the world, if it means being faithful to the call. Faith will stretch you beyond your comfort zone. It will force you to walk on water, climb mountains, and tear down walls with nothing but a shout. Faith doesn't comfort your insecurities, it confronts them. It pushes you into places where you cannot rely on your own strength. It demands that you lean fully on God. It reminds you that your assignment was never supposed to be manageable by human effort alone. If you could accomplish it without Him, it wouldn't require faith. Faith at the final step is also violent in the spirit. It refuses to passively accept defeat. It wars in prayer, stands firm against fear, and praises when silence feels easier. Faith acts as though the promise has already been fulfilled, because in the eternal realm, it has. Faith celebrates before the walls fall, before the waters part, before the breakthrough happens. Faith shouts in triumph while still standing in the midst of battle. Faith demands focus. You can't entertain every voice, every opinion, or every distraction. Faith narrows your vision to one thing, the faithfulness of God. It quiets the noise of doubt and tunes your ear to the voice of heaven. Faith is fueled by intimacy. You can't trust someone you don't know. Faith grows as you walk closely with God, learning His nature, His voice, and His ways. The more intimately you know Him, the easier it becomes to trust Him. At the final step, trust is no longer about what you see, it's about who you know. You trust not because the path is clear, but because the one leading you is trustworthy. Faith at the final moment is a seed that produces supernatural harvests. It's the act of planting obedience in barren soil, expecting an abundant crop. It's the willingness to leap, knowing that God has either prepared a place for you to land or taught you to fly. Faith transforms the final step from a cliff into a bridge, from a risk into a reward, and from a death into a resurrection. When you look back, you'll realize that the final moment wasn't just about crossing into your promise. It was about becoming the kind of person who could carry that promise. The faith you exercised will echo into every future victory. It will shape how you lead, build, and dream. It will become the foundation for even greater exploits, because faith never stops growing once it's activated. Faith is not just the bridge, it's the victory itself. For everyone born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that overcomes the world, our faith. The final step is crossed not by sight, not by strength, and not by certainty, but by audacious, immovable, unrelenting faith. Faith that believes God will finish what He started. My friend, the destiny inside of you is not a distant dream. It's a living reality, waiting for your agreement, your vision, and your faith. You are standing at the edge, and it is no accident. You've been prepared for this moment. Now is the time to see it for yourself, to look beyond the fear, the noise, and the doubt, and lay hold of the unseen with both hands. This is the final step. The call has been made. The bridge of faith is under your feet. Now it's time to step forward, not hesitating, but with boldness. It's time to step into what has always been yours, to walk in what was written for you, to possess what heaven has set aside in your name. You are the chosen one. See it, believe it, and take the step that will change everything.